Thank you all for joining or watching back for those that are watching the recording. So over the next hour, and it probably won't take that long, but more than happy to spend that much time talking about this brilliant award. We are going to be learning more about what the Sovereigns Award actually is. I'm guessing you might have heard of it if you are listening in or if you've signed up to this session. But going into some detail here of what it actually is and giving you some top tips if you are thinking about applying, of how to put in a really good application. And I can guarantee you that these tips are going to be a success because we have a very esteemed panel with us here this evening who have all been recipients of the Sovereigns Award themselves. So before we go into any details, I'm going to briefly ask them all to introduce themselves. So who are they? What did they do in their wonderful lives to get to the place to be a Sovereigns Award recipient? Anything else of interest? And let's go to Anne first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Anne. I'm currently a youth leader for Bands and Cadets. I'm also a district youth officer and more recently a national cadet officer. And I've been in the organisation since I was about 7, and outside of St John, I'm studying to become a doctor, so I've just finished my 3rd year of medical school.
Thank you. Phoebe, do you want to go next?
Sure. So yeah, I joined when I was 10, so going on 9 years now, which is scary. Done a bit of everything in my life as a cadet. Was on the Regional Youth Forum and ultimately chaired the Regional Youth Forum last year. I'm now at med school, just finished my 1st year of medical school, but now I'm also the Regional CBQA officer for London.
Awesome. And Keegan we've got with us as well. He's dialing in from Greece.
Thank you. Yes, hello everyone. A slight buck to the trend. I don't really have anything to do with cadets. So my current role is as National Student Volunteering Manager. And I joined St John when I was 19-ish at university. Since then, I've done quite a few roles in unit leadership and in training and clinical stuff and all that sort of fun stuff. And worked my way up to National Student Volunteering Manager. In my real life, I don't work the trend. I am also a medical student, but I don't think that is a trend that should make you think only medical students can win this award. And I'm also just finished my 3rd year like Anne.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we can see different experiences coming from the places they've been through St John to get to the place of being an overall Sovereigns Award recipient. So there's no one size fits all when you look at this. Also, we have an esteemed panel, so you might be thinking, oh my God, they've done so much stuff. I can never compete with that. I got no chance. But we've obviously picked the best. There's also some shoddy people that get through as well, which isn't the case. But there's also people that do equally incredible things, but in different ways, that are all very worthy recipients of the Sovereigns Award. So don't think that your background or your experience doesn't fit exactly what someone is talking about on this course, therefore you are not eligible. 100% not the case. And we'll hear lots from our panelists throughout the rest of the evening, including what they put into their applications. But let's start off with getting a better understanding of what the Sovereigns Award actually is. So Anne, can you tell us what is the Sovereigns Award?
Yeah, so the Sovereigns Award is basically the top award that any under 25 in St John ambulance can get globally. And it's really special because you receive a certificate that's signed personally by the Queen, and she actually does sign it. So yeah, and it kind of shows that you've been a benefit to the community, to others, and you've done something good in St John or outside of St John, and yeah, it's a really cool award.
Definitely, yeah, and we've checked many times, got a proper close up to look, and that is a real signature from Her Majesty the Queen. And interestingly, it's the only award in anywhere in St John Ambulance that is directly from Her Majesty the Queen. Lots of other awards are sanctioned or go through her, but it's only one directly from Her Majesty the Queen. And it is that top award, like you said, Anne, for all under 25s in St John globally. So a bit of a big deal, and something to be looking good on a mantelpiece. Right. So who is actually eligible to go for the Sovereigns Award, Keegan? Who can nominate themselves, apply, take part?
The good news is lots of people. So as Anne said, it's an award that goes up to 25 years old, and the kind of earliest you can apply for it is 16. You don't have to be, in a specific part of St John, no matter your age, no matter what you've done, you can apply for the award. There are a couple of eligibility criteria that you have to meet. So, for example, just so I don't get them up, you need to have completed the Grand Prize Award, which I never did. You need to be a cadet demonstrator that's engaged with up to 200 young people, which I never did. Or you need a cadet operational first aider and a load of 200 hours of event cover, which also I never did. And the alternative that I did, for example, just to prove that it is accessible to pretty much anyone, is 1,000 hours of voluntary service. That doesn't have to be in 1 year. That can be over the time you've been an adult volunteer. So, for example, I've never done 1,000. Got close. I've never done 1,000 hours in 1 year. I have done something like 2,000 hours. So pretty accessible, although it might not initially seem it when you first look, but it's definitely accessible to everyone.
Brilliant, thank you. A really good point on both sides there. A question that comes up lots is that if you're doing 1,000 adult hours, does that all have to be in 1 year? We know that some volunteers do that in rare situations, but it doesn't all have to be in 1 year. It can be spread out. And if you think about you've got into your 25th birthday from 18 to 25, 1,000 hours, lots of our volunteers who are adult volunteers are able to do that, making you eligible. It's after Grand Prize Awards. This is the next thing after that. So originally it was created to be the next thing after Grand Prize, but lots of people that do take part never completed or even started the Grand Prize Award. But if you have, it's a brilliant next step to go on to. And another thing which you mentioned there, Keegan, just to emphasize, is it's up until your 25th birthday. So if you are like your 25th birthday is tomorrow and you submit it today, that's fine. You don't have to be 25 on the 1st of October or anything like that. Just make sure you've submitted it before your 25th birthday. Great. So assuming we meet all of those different criteria, Phoebe, how do we actually go about applying?
I actually love this part because quite literally any way you can apply. So many people do different things. You can submit a project in any format. So it could be a board game, it could be a video, it could be a poster, it could be a presentation, either in the post or by email, just before the 1st of October. And there's quite literally very little constraint on what you submit. So, get as creative as you like. As long as that's in before the 1st of October, all of those go in front of a panel made up of lots of important people in St John. So people like Anne Cable, Chief Commissioner, Kevin Monday, Commissioner of Young People, Georgina, National Cadet of the Year, and so on, and an external judge. And they all judge the nominations and put them forward to the International Office and the Queen to be sanctioned. And they get signed off, hopefully. And then the winners get to go to the Young Achievers reception, which is usually later part of the year, usually attended by Princess Anne.
Yeah, bit of a big deal. This is actually true, if you can believe it or not. We do physically write a paragraph of information about all of the people we nominate, which goes to Her Majesty the Queen, and she checks. Because 1 year I forgot to submit those bits of information, and the palace came back saying no, the Queen doesn't just sign signatures randomly. She wants to know some information. So there is that level of involvement from her in that process. So we mentioned right at the start there that you can apply and take part and do your application in many different formats, which is great because you can be creative and do whatever you want. And we've seen all sorts of styles come through. Also, it's a bit annoying. So for someone like me that likes to be told what to do and given clear instructions, having something so open can also be quite daunting to begin with. So what I think would be really useful is if we go around the three of you, you talk us through what did you in detail actually do to put together your application. So what format was it? What kind of things did you cover off within it as you submitted it? And for some of you, it was more recent than others. Whatever you can think of that was exactly what you did for yours as inspiration for others would be really useful. Should we go to Keegan first this time?
Yeah. So this is something that I think I could talk about quite a lot for, so I'll try not to. There are a few different things that went into my application. I mean, first of all, there was the whole aspect of should I even try and am I actually going to get anywhere? And up until the day I heard, I still didn't think I was going to get the award. But, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, for example. So I thought I would, and I thought I had done quite a lot for St John's, so I thought I'd apply, and here I am. I did a lot of kind of research into what the examples were on Connect, and as well as there's a few other websites like St John New Zealand and I think Australia have some more information about Sovereign's Award than is obviously available from St John England. So I'd say go have a look at those as well and give yourself a few different ideas of what you could do. I decided to go with a portfolio because that was the format of the examples, and actually it's something that I've done before, and it gave me, it was just something I wrote about in the award. It gave me a link back to when I did GCSE graphics, which I absolutely loved, but I've not really done anything since then. So I found some free professional software, Affinity Designer or Publisher, I think it was, and it was free at the time. And I put together a proper portfolio. By the end of it, I think it was 32 megabytes big. And I included a lot of information. I spent probably about 2 or 3 months on this in total because I couldn't really work out how to write some things. I couldn't really decide what I wanted to include, but I included a lot about the benefit to me, which for me is it might sound a bit weird, for me is probably the biggest impact of joining St John. I mean, Richard's read it, and I'm sure he'll corroborate that there was quite a lot of personal growth that St John gave me, and being able to write that out in my application, my portfolio, and more importantly, reflect on it, like really properly reflect on it. I think that's probably what made my application much stronger than it could have been otherwise. Of course, I talked about all the things I did when I was doing volunteering at university, when I was doing public engagement stuff through the society, for example, the First Aid Society, and training people, doing the vaccination training, helping develop new university units, all that sort of thing. But the one thing that probably, at least in my head, probably set my portfolio apart was probably the truthful reflection I did. And even now, I've had some friends come to me and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of applying, but I don't know what to do." And I'm like, just be honest with yourself. Be honest with how much benefit you have gained from it. And some of that's uncomfortable things to realize. And some of it is really enlightening to realize. And the kind of benefit you've had on the community, and be compassionate to yourself with that, because we all do a lot more for our community than we actually ever really want to admit. And I hated that part of writing it and digging myself up, but it's all true, and it's all stuff that we do. The other way that I was considering making my my portfolio was video, but in the end it kind of took too long. I was going to do both, ended up just portfolio. But I think it's part of the proudest things I've created. So what I've done, I need to talk about it in any more detail, but I'll give it for the other to actually say stuff as well.
That was awesome. Thank you very much, Keegan. And just to pick up some bits, so I didn't really introduce my like role in this process, but I've been like administrating this process for the last few years now, which means I do sit in on all the judging panels and hear what they like and hear what they don't. So just to kind of pick up on some points and emphasize what Keegan said, the reflection is a really key part to it. What the judges aren't interested in is just a list of all the stuff that I've done. What they really want to see is your reflection of how has that benefited you, how has that benefited St. John, how has that benefited the community, what have you learned from it. Everything doesn't have to have gone perfectly and brilliant, but reflect on stuff of how it's been good and how it's fitted into those three categories to benefit yourself, St. John, on the community, and it'll make it really stand out. I remember Keegan's application, and it is extremely pretty. It does look very great. It does look very nice, and all the judges are impressed by that, which is great. But you do not have to make things really polished and pretty. We know for some people that is harder than others. So although they will be impressed if you produce this like publishable document, which looks brilliant, that is not a requirement. But having something that's easy to read and to follow and that flows will support your application. So if you can make it pretty, like lots of people do, great. But don't sit there thinking, oh, I can't use Photoshop on all of these fancy things like video editing software, so therefore it's not for me. Don't worry about that at all. But do think about the kind of gravitas of what the thing you're applying for is. Keegan said it took him like 2 to 3 months to put all these bits together. This is like a big project. This is a big piece of work. So if you do want to start thinking about applying, your deadline of the 1st of October, then you probably want to start about now if you haven't already, so you have enough time so you don't rush it and you get it in and you put in the required amount of effort to reach that standard. And we've had people apply before that have done brilliant things, and I've known personally that are great people, but have just submitted like 2 pages of A4, and that isn't enough to portray to the judges, often who won't know who you are, the brilliant things that you do. So make sure you put it across in a clear way, but don't worry too much if it's not going to be all pretty. And another thing is, it comes up all the time, it's very true, St. John people are very humble, and often the fact that you do all of these amazing things is just normal because you do it or your mates do it. What's special about that? But it is special and it is important to call out, and that's one of the reasons why we have the external person on the panel to be judging. So previously, for the last 2 years, we had the head of the Army Cadets. We're looking at various different people, but some high caliber external people to be on that panel to have that outside perspective. Say, actually, going out and training 1,000 people to be vaccination volunteers at the age of 17 and then volunteering 100 hours in a vaccination site isn't normal. Not every young person's doing that. That is incredible to see that. So look out for that stuff. Also, Keegan mentioned the Connect page. So if you have access to Connect, there is a page on Connect which has other examples that you can look through, as well as a guidance document. And finally, the other point I wanted to mention was it's about quality, not always quantity. So we have had people submitted 45-minute long videos, and as brilliant as they are, if every person that applied submitted a 45-minute long video, the judges would use up far too much time going through that for something they probably could work out in, say, a 15-minute video instead. So think about what are the bits, the key points I want to put across that's going to be most impactful, because often someone submits a 45-minute video, they can get the bits they need from like 10-15 minutes of that, and the rest can just end up being filler. So think about quality, not quantity. And that was all from picking up on Keegan's points, because he said so much, which was brilliant. Thank you, Keegan. Who would like to go next? That never works. I'll pick someone to go next. And you can go next.
Okay, yes. So what I did for my project was, again, trying to like think about my motivations for applying. I didn't really know anyone that had applied for it before, so I kind of found out a lot of information from Connect again, and Twitter is a good place to have a look for information. And yes, so after I figured out whether I wanted to apply, I thought about kind of what I had done, and it doesn't need to be like these crazy things like you've saved lives, you've done all these things like you might have done, which that would be great, but like even small things that you do in your community, like whether that be in your own unit or going out on events, things like that, all count towards building up a picture of what you've done in St. John, building up a picture of who you are, And again, it's not like about what you've done, but kind of what you've learned from that and what you've taken away from that and given to other people. And mine, I'm not as I don't think I'm as like tech savvy or can't produce these good graphics. So I went with a video format, and I created a video talking about my journey within St. John, and I did it in almost like a timeline way. So kind of talking about each different stage. So things like my local unit, being Cadet of the Year, becoming a youth leader, all things like that. And I include lots of pictures and things, which I think is quite nice for, I guess, whoever's viewing it to kind of see what you're getting up to and like how it looks in action. And it's not just like you talking at a camera for however long. So yeah, I'd say include like visual aids, include lots of if you have like newspaper snippets from things that you've done, or other things, other evidence, like definitely include that as well. But yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Anne. Phoebe.
Perfect. So yeah, I started thinking about this time last year, I'd say. I had a summer off before uni pretty much, and I was like, you know what, this is going to be the year I'm going to put some time into this. And I still had no idea, you know, whether I'd get it, how it would go, but I was like, it's quite sort of like a project for me anyway. Like I really enjoyed going back over my St. John journey. Like I have a memory box of all my St. John things. Like I'm sure many people already do have that kind of thing, and I got to go through that and think, oh, put this in here, put this in there. So you can probably tell I love a memory. I take a lot of photos in St. John. Started taking a lot more for the past few years, but I have got a lot of photos of my St. John journey. So I thought I made a PowerPoint, but I almost made it like a digital scrapbook of my St. John journey, and I split it into like 3 sections. 3 sections you need to sort of demonstrate of like the impact of St. John as a whole, the community, and personal impact. So I started off being like, you know, this is a bit about me. This is, you know, why I started St. John and where I'm at now. And then I started with one that I think everyone finds quite easy, your impact to St. John as a whole. I think everyone, you know what you do in St. John, you know what your role is, and you know if you've fulfilled it here and you've achieved this and you've done that, and that's great. And I really enjoyed talking about, you know, spreading St. John's message by going on the radio, or, you know, all those things that, you know, lots of people have had the chance to do, and it's really great. And then I went off into the sections of the personal impact and the impact of the community. And like Keegan said, it really was a chance to reflect yourself on especially the personal impact. I really enjoyed that. You know, I've talked before, I've done talks, I've written things, I said, oh, I've done this and that in St. John, but actually thinking, you know what, how St. John's changed me, or, you know, the people in St. John and what that's meant to me, I really enjoyed more than anything. So it really is a project like to enjoy, I'd say, like making an application for the Sovereigns Award. So like leadership opportunities I've had, and recognition for my skills that like you don't get otherwise. And then impact on the community. Again, this is a chance to not be so humble. Sometimes it's hard to be like, wait, I do St. John, but what do I do for my wider community? Like St. John is my thing. But a lot of things you already do in St. John do impact your wider community. So like through the whole of COVID, I was a demonstrator for all the vaccination care volunteer courses near me. So that was a big thing. I was like, actually, that did impact my community. Made quite a lot of vaccinators out of that. Running community CPR sessions. I did quite a lot of fundraising last year and the past few years through other things I've been involved with through St. John. And so, yeah, that was a great chance to reflect on that. But what I would say is I really enjoyed, so not just saying like listing off what I did like other people have said, I was linking it back to like the impact it had and reflecting on that. So I did that a lot through sort of talking about the heart values. So I go, I showed my teamwork through this, or I showed my humanity for my community through doing this. And so I'd write a bit about it, but then say, you know, this really relates to the person I am in St. John because of these values. So I think that's always something good to consider. And it was a really good tip that I was given when I was writing my application. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And picking up on some of those points, both from Anne and Phoebe there. So I think most people you speak to is that, wasn't sure if I was going to get it, wasn't really sure if I was good enough to go for this stuff. That's like completely normal feeling. So if you are thinking about it, then I would imagine the advice more of them would be just to go for it. And some backing support to that is that we have lots of people that apply for it, don't get it, get given some feedback from the judges, and then can come back the second year and apply again. So there's no limit on the number of times that you can apply, as long as it's before your 25th birthday. So if you're sat there now and you're like 17, then you could apply when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So you apply once per year up until your 25th birthday. So far, no one's managed to apply that many times without either getting it or getting the hint. But you can apply as many times as you would like. So do make the most of those opportunities. And if you think, oh, I want someone to have a look through it or to check it over, then send them through. And people are happy to do that and to talk through those points. But if there's any doubt, just go for it. Do your best, and then you can get some feedback. They might say, oh, you're almost there, but next year, do a bit more of this, or do a bit more reflection on this, or think about this. Another common reason that people don't get it is exactly as Phoebe was describing in the community section. So easy to talk about what you've done in St. John, easy to talk about yourself, but the community is more tricky. So in some cases, just reflecting back how the stuff you've done in St. John actually has impacted your community. So yeah, great, you may have been to loads of local events. Perfect, that ticks off helping out St. John and doing some good stuff there. But if you then twist that and talk about how that's supporting your community and allowing those events to take place, and improving the image of St. John in your local areas, you're then looking at it from a community perspective. We also are very interested in anything you do outside of St. John as well. So don't think this is just a St. John specific thing. So think about how you might have helped your communities outside. Have you done projects in school to get DFIB in your school? Have you done a fundraising thing of somewhere of some sorts for some other form of charity? All of that is helping your communities, but not necessarily related to St. John, but still just as applicable and relevant to mention in your application. So nothing is out of scope. We want to see you as a full person, full individual, about how great you are. And you just happen to be in St. John as well. Cool. So we're shortly going to go on to questions. So do make use of the form that's been shared in advance to submit those if you've got any. We've got some coming through, which is great. But before we do that, let's go around to our panelists one more time with any final top tips, words of wisdom, or anything else that they would like to share with you before we get to the questions. So let's go in reverse order. So we go to Phoebe first.
Perfect. I kind of shared my favourite tip, which was linking it back to the values of St. John. Like, I found that a really good way to reflect myself. So not necessarily the heart values. Obviously, the St. John cross has all the points, and although if you've done your St. John history subject, if you've been in St. John as long as I have, I use some of those as well. But anyway, you can link it back to St. John values that you can find. It gives you an easier way to reflect, I think. And then my other tip would sort of be equal amount on each section, like we said before. It's great to think about your impact on St. John, but make sure you have a good reflection on the other sections as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Anne.
Yeah, my top tip would be just, if you have like any interest in doing it, definitely go for it. No matter what your background is, I'm sure that you've got something interesting to share, and try and make it as personal as possible. And I'm sure that people would love to hear like the impact that you've had. And again, don't be shy. No one really likes talking about themselves, but this is an opportunity to do it and make it a really good project, and spend some time doing that as well. So yeah.
Completely agree. Thank you. And Keegan.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things for me. I think definitely what Phoebe and Anne said are very important, and I completely agree. On top of that, I think for me, be honest, be truthful, and be thorough. So be honest about the impact you have made, be truthful about what you've done, obviously, and be thorough. Include as much information that's relevant as you can, and make sure you link it back in. I genuinely cannot express how important real honest reflection is going to be for this, both for the award and for growing you after you've kind of done the portfolio or application as well. The other thing I'd say is, Richard mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a tech quiz. You absolutely don't. Completely agree. But if you show, if you want to give it a go with like a video or design software or anything like that, Google is free. And if you show that you've put yourself out there and learned a new skill, that is a great way to demonstrate personal benefit from doing the Sovereign's Award. Definitely something I did. So would recommend that if that's the sort of thing you want to do, you absolutely don't have to.
Brilliant, thank you. Cool. So we now have the rest of the time, almost perfectly timed, half an hour left, to go through questions that have been submitted. So do keep submitting them as you think of these, and we'll take these amongst all of us. So I'll read them out. If anyone fancies answering it, then just jump in, and if not, I can have a go. The first one I might take because it's a bit more detailed of the requirements. So the first question is, do operation training courses count for the 200 young people engaged with? And if not, why not? So this is going back to the entry criteria. So you can have one of the 4 options. So either you've done your grand prize award or you've done 1,000 hours of adult voluntary service. And the majority of people from looking back at previous years have all applied on either having their grand prize award or from doing 1,000 hours of adult voluntary service. But equally important and relevant ways of applying is either from being a cadet operational first aider and then doing 200 hours of event cover, or being a cadet demonstrator and engaging with 200 young people. So that cadet demonstrator one is kind of transitioned a bit over the time. So it used to be, for those that knew beforehand, the BTEC and peer education. And the thinking behind that one there was, this here is about you getting out in your communities and speaking to other young people and teaching them first aid skills. So that's how it started. So it used to be just peer educator engaging with 200 people externally to St. John and then teaching them first aid. We removed that requirement, so now it is just engage with 200 different young people to teach them some skills, which therefore could include operational training. So it could include the stuff that you're teaching internally. The strict, like by the rules is, yeah, that could include people internally. So you could teach 200 people the buddy course if you wanted. The kind of like the flavoring and the thinking behind it was about this here is about you going out to spread the first aid message. So if you're using that requirement, technically, yes, you can do that just from doing all internal training of people doing that stuff. But the gist of it was all about getting out and spreading the first aid message. So that is what that one there is. Another question we often get around that is, how do you actually record that? So it needs to be 200 different people. It can't be like your unit, but you've taught like the 10 people in your unit like 20 times. It needs to be different people, which isn't always easy to record. So just a kind of a list of these are the things I've done, and there was like 20 people here, 20 there, and some kind of descriptions of what you covered and stuff as a personal log of your training will be fine for that criteria. Hopefully that answers that. Next question. How recent do your achievements have to be? What if your best achievements are in the last couple of years rather than in 2022? Who would like to take that one? Phoebe nodded. Was that you want to take it? Keegan's off mute. Perfect. Thank you, Keegan.
Oh,
go for it.
Okay, Phoebe, you can go after me. Sorry, I haven't seen, I don't have my cameras on, so I can't see. What I'd say is my portfolio covered from 19 to 24. I applied for it when I was 24. So the quick answer is yes. Include as much as you want over that period of time. Show your development and your progress and how you've kind of changed the impacts you've done over that time as well. Would probably be a good suggestion. But yeah, include anything that you think is important, relevant, and will make you look amazing.
Yes, thank you. Next question. Is there a checklist of what details definitely need to be included in your submissions?
I mean, someone might have to correct me here because Rich is better at the technicalities, but you definitely have to focus on the 3 sections, like I said. So the impact on the wider St John, the personal impact, and the impact to your communities. And that's really the main thing I followed. I don't think I followed anything crazily different to that. The great thing about Sovereign's Award is that you have so much freedom in how you cover and how you talk about it. But Richard, correct me if I'm wrong.
You are exactly right, yeah. So there's no specific checklist other than we want you to cover benefit yourself, St John Ambulance and the community. But there is useful information, which is basically what we've talked through now, which is on the Connect page and which also has a PDF on that of like guidance when you're applying. So if you've got access to Connect, great, get on that. If not, then email me or email Emma Jane or any of your youth leaders that do have access to Connect, and then they can share the details with you that are on that page, but no specific checklist. Cool, next question. By reflection, is that things you could improve and what went well, like an evaluation? Who wants to talk us more about what they did for a reflection and what that means?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So with reflection, I think it is, yeah, like you're saying, kind of what went well, maybe also things like you're saying that you could improve, but what kind of wider impact that had, and also how that links back to your role within St John, how that links back to your role within the community. So always trying to link back and think, what are the 3 sections, what are they asking you, and try and link and reflect on how your experiences have impacted that and how your viewpoint and perspective might be different to someone else and what you're bringing to the table. That's what I would say reflecting would be.
Completely agree, yeah. So it's that taking that next stage of saying, yeah, I was an event manager at Plymouth football or whatever, is listing it out, but then your reflection is saying, I was an event manager, and my reflection of this here is the fact that I was responsible for these kind of amount of people. These are the things that I really got from that. It helped me develop my communication skills, it helped me develop my management skills, and going into that next level of detail other than just saying, yeah, I did this. What did you get from it? How did it benefit St John? How did it benefit yourself? So cover that, what could go better and what you could improve at, but also what you learn and why you did it and those kind of bits. Next question. Who can help me with my application? Is that even allowed?
I mean, my answer to that is
One?
no. Go for it, Keegan.
Oh no, go on.
Okay. Well,
The
my
lack
answer
degrees.
to that is I literally asked anyone and everyone. Go nag your mum. Go nag your unit manager. Go nag your best friend. Go nag anyone to read. So obviously you have all your ideas, and only you can talk about the things you've done in St John and how that's impacted you. So obviously write it all by yourself. But for opinions on it, go ask as many people as you can. I think, you know, sometimes someone might say something you don't agree with, especially if it's your parents. My mum would check my grammar all the time, things like that. She'd be like, change this here, change that there. But mainly for like the overall impact, literally just ask as many people as possible, especially if they're in St John and like they know you, because you might have forgotten something, or something might have had a greater impact than you realised, and they're like, wait, you know, you did this and this really, like, you know, was a big thing that you did, or this led to this and things like that. Yeah, just ask everyone you can to look at your application, to be honest.
Definitely, yeah. That's 100% allowed and encouraged to involve as many people as you can in that process. You are not on your own. Next question. If you're an adult now, do you still qualify to enter the award on cadet operational first aid hours that you did in the past? So easy answer to that. So I could take this one. Yes, you do. So yeah, if you're an adult now and you did 200 hours as an operational first aider when you're a cadet, that counts. If you're an adult now and you got your grand prize award when you're a cadet, then all of that counts. Yeah. So definitely it does. Next question. Is it worth getting witness statements from those you've worked with? Keegan, do you want to take this one?
Yes. Yeah, basically that's the answer. So I got a few, I didn't call them witness statements, I called them testimonials. You could call them witness statements if you want. It sounds a little bit kind of like policey. Basically, I got a couple people who I know me well and I know will give an honest kind of reflection of what, okay, reflection is a bad word to use, as we talked about a lot, an honest account of what I've done and the impact it's had, because I know I'm not very good at that myself, and sometimes it's good to include the sort of things from other perspectives. It probably sounds quite bad. One of them was my mum. I got my mum to write a testimonial. I wasn't involved at all. She just sent it to me, about how I've grown and changed over my time in St John. And I think that really benefited my application in terms of it reflected against what I'd written quite well, and added a bit more context. I got a friend who's known me for years, and I got someone else as well. I think either a line manager at the time or something like that. So I had kind of a professional or family and friend aspect. I know someone now who's writing that application and has asked like 25 different people, just to get as many kind of options as possible in case some people don't come back with a testimonial. But it's good to use as an addition to what you're writing, and good to give more context about what you're writing and you. So definitely worth it.
Completely agree, and probably looking from previous applications, about 50% of people do that. So it's not like it's definitely must have, but it's a really good way, like you can describe, to bulk out your application with different perspectives. So it's not just taking your individual word for how great you are. Other people saying that as well adds a lot of value. Next question. Could you combine the benefits to the community and to St John Ambulance instead of having two separate sections?
So I think it's kind of laid out in that format because they want you to kind of talk about those three things. But it is your project. You don't have to necessarily have like three defined sections. But I think they've set it out in that way so that you can talk about different things and it can expand what you're talking about rather than just limiting it to just St. John focused. They want to see that you've done things outside as well, but that doesn't mean that things can't overlap, because naturally they will. So yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. And then giving you a little insight now into how the judging process works behind the scenes. So all of the judges in advance will have all of the applications to look through in detail in their own time, and then they get together on the day. And the first pass of like running through them is you take one at a time, and then they look at each of those specific categories of benefit to yourself, St. John, and the community. And they score out of those three categories of how well you've done in each category. And the scores don't necessarily mean anyone that scored above 5 out of 10 gets, and anyone that scores below it doesn't. But that's like their useful first kind of pass through indication of kind of like looking through the different nominations. So they will be specifically looking at those three areas. So the easier you can make it for the judges to identify which bit is which and that you have covered all three areas, the better. But exactly as Ant describes, there will be crossover between all of the three parts, which is fine, but make sure it's all covered. You might end up missing bits out if you put one thing in to cover two areas, or may not be obvious to other people when they're reading it that that's what you've done. Next question. Can I start applying before I'm 16?
I think there's nothing to say you can't start getting your stuff together and thinking about what you'd like to put. And, you know, like we said, lots of us took time to reflect on the overall sections before. I thought about and made lists and bullet points and mind maps and things like that a few months before I started. So, I mean, there's nothing to stop you starting that application and getting those thoughts together, especially, you know, keeping little snippets of newspapers and things like Anne said, like those, that really is helpful when you're writing your application, but can't quite submit that application until you're 16, if you're 16 on October 1st. Or
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, start working on it and then just wait till your 16th before you actually submit it. And next one, this question follows on nicely from talking about the testimonials. So let's go to Keegan again. So what do you think would class as good evidence to include alongside testimonials, Keegan?
These are some really good questions. So, part of me wants to say all the useful evidence you can. So I used a lot of pictures, for example, about my time in St John, and that show different things. So, for example, one of the things I did was took a screenshot when I wrote about, hey, I learned how to use the software to, personal benefit from doing this award. I took a screenshot of the software itself. I also included things like on my data. I'm not sure. I don't think you can get access to it when you're under 18. But if you're applying, you're over 18, or maybe you're a youth leader or youth manager will be able to help. On my data, you can get essentially a breakdown of your hours per category. So I put that in there as a little pie chart as a demonstration of the fact that I have done, this many hours and I qualify, but also this is how it's split amongst the different kind of areas. Other than that, it's just kind of including information about stuff you've been involved in and backing it up with the relevant facts. That's probably the best way to explain it. Definitely, I think things like testimonials, if you've got any data of the stuff you've done, if you've got any pictures of the stuff you've done, YouTube videos, you can link that in there, for example. Anything that helps kind of build your application, build your portfolio, build your award will help. It's just doing it in the right way, if that makes sense. Hopefully that actually answered your question and made sense, because yes.
It made sense to me. Thank you, Keegan. Anything from Anne or Phoebe to add to that?
I'd echo that, but I would say that what I found really useful, I mean, it's quite niche, but I like I mentioned earlier, I taught lots of vaccination care volunteer courses, and what we did at the end of every course was get them to fill in a post-it note of feedback. And what I actually did was kept all those post-it notes for my memory.
Only the good ones are all of them.
Well, did just use a few of those to put on the PowerPoint, but did pick a few of those, took some pictures and made them into a collage around my PowerPoint. And that was just, the odd few words here and there going, the training was good, they were impressive because they were young, or, things like that are just small. So yeah, like that, mine weren't full testimonials. That's sort of like my main point was mine weren't full testimonials, but I like small things like that, or little quotes and little pieces of evidence that, that backs up everything else that's other people's views. And again, like Keegan said, I put in links to when I was on the radio, to the recording of that, and links to news articles and things like that. That's really good because, it wasn't the main part of my application, but it was, you could click on it if you want to know a bit more about this. So it didn't take up too much room, but it was there. I could represent that it was there and I'd done it.
Cool. Let's go to the next one. What can you use the award for in the future? What have any of you used the award for since you've received it?
The first thing I asked Richard was, when can I put it on LinkedIn? I mean, I'm not sure if it's something that you necessarily use, if that makes sense. I think it's something that is more kind of a justification of the fact that you have done a lot of stuff and a lot of good stuff. For me, it's not necessarily about, I'm sure this isn't how you mean it, and not necessarily about what I can do with that award. It's about the fact that I actually have been recognised for something, which, to be honest, doesn't really happen very often for me in St John, apart from kind of among my immediate team. So it was quite nice, and it's something that I can kind of put on my future applications, on my CV, when I go into specialty training and things like that as a doctor. There was one other thing for that as well. I can't remember. If I remember it, I'll say it afterwards.
And it's just quite cool to have a certificate with the actual Queen's signature on, as well as all of the other important things like being able to put on CVs and application forms and mention, because it's quite different. Not many people will have anything like that, especially at a young age. So it will make you stand out. So two other points here just on clarification of the process. So hopefully after all of this, everyone's thinking, yes, I definitely want to apply. So just to make it really clear what the application process actually is. So you work on your application and you make something in whatever format you like that is brilliant. You share with lots of people to get their feedback, and you make sure that it's all ready before the deadline of the 1st of October. At some point before the 1st of October, you email it into the Volunteering and Young People admin team, which is volunteering-youngpeople@sga.org.uk. Email it to them. Alongside that, there is also a form to complete, which is called an SJF 40, which just gives you your details and background and bits of information, such as what criteria it is you're using to apply, and then also some form of evidence to show that you have got your grand prize, or you have done 1,000 hours, or you have done 200 hours as a cadet demonstrator, or 200 hours as a cadet operational first aider. So collect together all of those bits of information and email it into volunteering-young people at any point throughout the year, but before the 1st of October if you want to get seen by this year's judging panel, and then it'll be reviewed. If for any reason you can't email it in, so say it's a physical, like 3D thing, like a scrapbook or something like that, then you also can post it in, and that gets posted to St. John's Lane, so the old National Headquarters building, and that address is the standard 27 St. John's Lane address that is all over the website and also listed on the Sovereigns Award Connect page and in the guidance document, which we can share if you've not already seen. So get all that information together and email it in or post it in to the youth team at National Headquarters, ready for the interview panel to see. Timelines after that. So then the judging panel will meet at some point during October, depending on their availability, which can be tricky because they're such busy senior people. But hopefully it'll be at some point in October, the judging panel will get together and then they'll go through all of the applications, and they, from those applications, will pick out who they recommend to go forward. There's only a total of 10 people that can be picked each year from across the whole globe. So therefore, we can't put forward any more than 10, but we could choose to put forward 10 if we think our 10 are better than everywhere else. So they'll put through up to 10, but they won't maximize out the 10 and fill up all the spaces just to use the numbers. They'll only put through those that they believe are worthy to keep and maintain the standards of the award, but up to 10 people will then get put forward to the St. John International Office, which will then get combined with all of the other applications from other countries around the world, and then they'll come up with their final 10, and then those final 10 will then go through to the Royal Palace, and the Queen, I don't think she's rejected anyone so far, but she could if she wanted, will then sanction those awards and sign the certificates, and that will come back. So with those steps, it can be quite a lengthy process. So after the judges met in October, we'll get back to you and let you know the first initial stage outcome, to say either the judges have recommended you go forward to the next stage, or you've not been successful this time and here's some detailed feedback to help you back. And then from that point, then it could take anywhere up to a year. So it is a long time to get through those next two stages of getting back to you for that final confirmation to say, yes, you have now got your Sovereigns Award, and then you'll receive it at the next available Young Achievers reception after that point, which will be November. So hopefully, if you applied for this round here on the 1st of October, you'll be receiving your certificate next November in 2023 from a member of the royal family at that point there. But yeah, it can take a long time. So patience is another key part of being a Sovereigns Award recipient. And final question, can you apply for multiple eligibility criteria? Yes. So if you have done your Grand Prize Award and you're also a Cadet Operational First Aider that's done over 200 hours, then perfect, tick both boxes. It won't get you any extra points, but that is completely fine and will add to the picture of what you have done in St. John. So you may have done all 4 of those, that's great, tick all 4. You may have just done 1, which is more normal. For people that have applied, that's fine as well. So tick everything you've done. And that is all the questions. Well done for such good questions. I can tell from the quality of the questions, we're going to get some really good quality Sovereigns Award applications coming through. Good luck with your applications. Any questions between now and the 1st of October, then do reach out either to me directly or to Emma Jane or to anyone else that can support, including if you've got your first draft and just want some feedbacks from people to look through before you actually submit it. We're happy to do that as well, to support as best as we can to get as many of you through as possible. So do reach out with any questions or support needed between now and then, especially if you're just watching back the recording now and haven't had opportunities to ask questions live, then do so. And I know in the past we've had previous Sovereigns Award recipients have then ended up coaching people as they go through the process, or if they've not been successful 1 year round, to support them with their 2nd year. So there's lots of support available for you if you ask. And we are at time. So thank you very much for sitting in and joining. Thank you so much to our panel of Anne, Phoebe and Keegan for providing all of their wisdom from their previous applications. Even more so to Keegan, who's joined us on holiday from Greece. That is true dedication of a Sovereigns Award recipient there. So thank you very much. And I will stick on till the last person leaves. But otherwise, have the good of the rest of your evening, and good luck with your applications. Thank you very much.